Hey guys, Trev Chakouti here from SpineWise, and today I want to talk to you about back pain, and most importantly I want to talk to you about sharp back pain, like that sharp point that just sort of grabs and feels like you're being stabbed. Because we all start thinking about, have I fractured a rib, have I broken something, because sometimes this pain can be so intense and it can come on out of the blue without having done anything at all. So what potentially can be this? So we've already spoken about the obvious being the fractures and things like that. So especially as you start getting older, if you do have brittle bones, it's really, really important to always consider the fact that we may be getting things like compression fractures. But for the average person in the population who gets this sharp stabbing pain in the back, generally these things are usually rib in orientation. So they're not fractures or anything like that. It's just basically the joints of where the rib actually meets the spine creating these problems. So this is really the area we're talking about here, where the spine joins onto the rib. And as it joins onto the rib, it can happen anywhere in the round. There's actually a very, very small margin of movement in those areas. So the rib doesn't actually move that much. So when we breathe in, if you take a deep breath in right now, you'll see your ribs come up. If you rotate, you can see your ribs twist a little bit, and that's really all the movement we have in our ribs. It's not much. So sometimes what happens is if you're having imbalances in muscles right through the back, so your extensor tone, these muscles aren't working very well, especially these intrinsic muscles that we can see coming through in this kind of format, or those that come out a little bit more and attach to the ribs themselves. If we're seeing these type of things, sometimes what happens, those muscles can get strained, or otherwise what can happen is you can rotate and then take a deep breath in or cough or sneeze, and this puts the rib into a situation where it may not be able to maintain stability as it moves through its range of motion. And the net result of that is we potentially have the possibility of spraining the joint themselves where the ribs actually meet the spine, and sometimes that can also result in a subluxation of the rib, so where the rib just slightly goes out of position, which can create a lot of problems for people. In some people they're predisposed to this and happens really, really regularly. In other people it's a fairly irregular occurrence, but overall, it is actually still quite common in the population to be seeing these type of things. So the classic symptoms we get if you've done these things, you often heard chiropractors talking about popping a rib or subluxating a rib. To do something like this, three key things we look for. Number one, do you get the sharp stabbing pain on breathing? So you take a deep breath in, does that catch and grab you? The second one is rotation. If you turn around, does that set the rib off? Do you feel that same spot, that pain in the same spot? Third one is head movement. Does moving your head forward, backwards, rotating, bending sideways induce the pain as well? If you've got any of those three things going through, then what will end up happening, usually it's a sign that you're spraining one of these things. The other one you can put in there as well is if somebody compresses your ribs, if they squeeze you, do you get an intense pain? Extreme intense pain, like you want to hit them and protect yourself type pain, because that can be an indication of fracture. But if you don't have a history of trauma or injury, then it's more likely to be this type of situation where we're just slipping a rib. So a couple of solutions we have for it. The most obvious thing is to see someone and get the rib actually fixed. So we talk about a 72-hour window in our office where if you actually relocate the rib and get movement back in the rib, most of those ribs usually settle down within 72 hours. If we don't, we need to basically go about trying to reduce the inflammation through that area. We need to balance out the muscles, all these little intrinsic muscles that are through here, plus the bigger muscles that come over the top and support the ribs there. These muscles need to be reset and improved. Not necessarily strengthened as such, but just functioning correctly so they support the area correctly. And the final one, of course, is our diaphragm. So if you remember, our diaphragm is attaching through this area here, coming down into your lower spine as well, something like that. So as the diaphragm moves up and down, it also helps rib movement. So if the diaphragm isn't functioning very well, that can sometimes set this process off. Likewise, sometimes when we cause an issue with the rib, the diaphragm can spasm up to try and protect that rib to limit movement. So sometimes some slow, deep abdominal breathing to activate that diaphragm can actually free that up, get the movement back in the rib, and also help out as well. So anyway guys, that's a quick introduction into sharp pain in the mid-back and why ribs and breathing are so important into those areas. If you're suffering with it, please contact us straight away. There's such easy things to deal with for most people, but yet I've seen people who have just lingered in this type of agony for months and months and months as a result of not knowing how to manage it, and sometimes not even understanding what the problem is or even giving the correct diagnosis as to what the problem is. So if you're unsure, you have any questions, just post down below what you're suffering with and I'll get straight to you. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that, send me a message. Always happy to help you out in any way, shape or form. My team is always here for you if ever you need any help whatsoever. Anyway guys, for me for now, that's it. I shall catch you in the next vid. Bye for now.